A recurring sequence has dismantled three dominant world powers across 5 centuries. In 2025, America walks this identical path, making the same choices, hitting the same markers, following a blueprint that has never failed to produce catastrophe. Consider Spain in 1590. They possessed more gold and silver than any civilization in recorded history. Their armies were unmatched across Europe. Every nation accepted their money. 80 years later, Spain was financially ruined, reduced to secondary status, never to regain their former position. Britain in 1914 commanded an empire covering a quarter of Earth's landmass. Their flag flew on every continent. Pound was how the world did business. 4 decades later, that empire had vanished, their currency worthless. Their role diminished to following Washington's lead. When dominant nations fall apart, they don't get invaded first. The breakdown starts with spending more than they can sustain. They've got troops scattered across too many places, fighting on too many fronts, making guarantees they can't back up, racking up bills they'll never pay. Early on, nobody notices anything wrong, and he still buys things. The army still wins fights. Politicians still make bold statements. But underground, everything's rotting. Money gets wasted on the wrong priorities. Factories shut down. Smart people pack their bags and leave for countries with actual opportunities. Then things speed up. Other countries start making backup plans. Enemies push boundaries to see what happens. Trade partners look for different options. Special status of your money starts slipping away. Suddenly, everything that made you powerful works against you. All that currency you printed comes rushing back home. Your military bases everywhere become too expensive to keep running. Those promises you made, nobody believes them anymore. Look at what happened to Spain, Britain, and the Soviets. They made exactly these mistakes. Every single one thought they'd last forever. Everyone expanded their military beyond what their economy could handle. Everyone messed with their money's value. Everyone ignored reality until everything was already falling apart. Why does this keep happening? Because empire economics don't forgive mistakes. You can't permanently spend beyond what you earn. You can't dominate the world without actually making things. You can't print unlimited money without paying the price. Once you hit certain points in the sequence, what comes next is basically guaranteed. When Columbus landed in the Americas in 1492, Spain suddenly had access to wealth beyond imagination. They crushed the Aztecs and Incas, taking over mineral deposits that made everything else look insignificant. Mid-1500s, their ships were hauling back 200 tons of silver every year. 50 years later, that number doubled. Spain basically controlled how much money existed in Europe. Their currency became what everyone used for serious business. Philip II ran Spain from 1556 until 1598, sitting on more wealth than any ruler had ever seen. He decided to spend it all on conquest. First mistake was spreading their military impossibly thin. Spain was simultaneously fighting the Ottomans across the Mediterranean, battling France and various Italian states, crushing Protestant uprisings in what's now the Netherlands, going up against England's fleet, running operations in the Philippines, and managing conflicts throughout their American territories. By 1580, they had soldiers committed on 4 different continents. Half their income went straight to military spending, and it still wasn't covering costs. Second stage hit when they started ruining their own money. Tax revenue couldn't keep up with expenses, so they started diluting their silver coins with copper. A coin that should have been pure silver became half copper, then mostly copper. They kept the same face value stamped on it, but the actual worth tanked. By 1600, Spanish silver coins barely had any silver in them. Merchants started refusing them or demanding more coins for the same goods. Prices went crazy. Third came the borrowing addiction. Spain took loans from Italian banks, German financiers, basically anyone willing to lend. Just 20 years into Philip's rule, by 1557, Spain declared they couldn't pay their debts. They defaulted, reorganized everything, then immediately went back to borrowing. They declared bankruptcy again in 1560, then 1575, then 1596. 4 times in 40 years they admitted they were broke, promised to fix things, then did the exact same thing again. Fourth stage destroyed their ability to make anything. When you've got unlimited silver flowing in, why bother producing stuff? Spain started importing everything. food, ships, manufactured goods, whatever they needed. The aristocracy thought actual work was beneath them. Their factories closed. Farms produced less and less. All that gold and silver from America went right back out to pay for French wine, Italian textiles, Dutch products. Spain became just a pipeline. Wealth poured in one side and immediately left through the other. By 1600, Spain made virtually nothing domestically. They depended completely on imports and their silver supply to pay for everything. When those mines started running dry and production fell, their whole economy imploded. Fifth stage showed up as total social breakdown. With the economy collapsing, crime exploded everywhere. Madrid's streets filled with desperate people. Anyone with skills or ambition left for France, England, or the Netherlands, places actually building something. Spain got left with government bureaucrats, military personnel, and clergy. Lots of people consuming wealth, nobody creating any. Portugal broke away by 1640. The Netherlands, which had been their wealthiest possession, was gone by 1650. By 1700, Spain was just a shell of an empire. Still looked big on maps, but economically finished. It went from global dominance to irrelevance in under a century and never came back. When Britain reached maximum power, they ruled over territories covering 1/4 of Earth's land. 400 million people lived under British authority. Every major international business transaction happened in pounds. Central banks worldwide stockpiled British government securities. London ran global finance. They assumed this dominance was permanent. The warning signs were already visible. Military commitments started crushing them. By the early 1900s, British forces were defending possessions across India, throughout Africa, in the Middle East, across China, Pacific Islands, and Caribbean territories. Protecting land on 6 continents drained resources constantly. When war erupted in Europe in 1914, they faced an impossible choice. Watch from the sidelines while the continent tore itself apart, or drained the treasury fighting. They picked war. The First World War cost them $40 billion, roughly $1 trillion in current value. They borrowed massively, primarily from America. By war's end in 1918, Britain had gone from lending money to owing it, particularly to the United States. Victory came at devastating financial cost. They maintained territorial control, but their economic foundation was shattered.
Oh, yes.
Their monetary system started failing next. The pound was theoretically backed by physical gold, but 4 years of war had depleted those reserves dramatically. They'd shipped gold across the Atlantic to purchase weapons, food, and supplies. By 1920, gold holdings were half their pre-war levels. Despite this, they attempted restoring the pound to its previous gold-backed value in 1925. This backfired completely. British goods became overpriced internationally. Their factories produced less. Workers lost jobs. To protect currency value, interest rates stayed elevated, which strangled domestic business growth. By 1931, maintaining the charade became impossible. Britain abandoned gold backing entirely. The pound immediately lost 1/4 of its exchange value. The world's primary currency had publicly admitted it couldn't honor its commitments. Debt became inescapable. They never recovered financially from the First War, when the Second began. That conflict added another $120 billion in costs, financed through more American lending. By 1945, Britain owed more than their entire annual economic output. Military victory meant nothing economically. Empire became unaffordable. Territorial loss came rapidly. India gained independence in 1947, taking Britain's most valuable possession. Over the following 2 decades, African territories, Middle Eastern holdings, Southeast Asian colonies, and Caribbean islands all broke away. By 1970, the empire existed only in history texts. Their currency continued its fall. In 1940, £1 bought $4 American. By 1950, less than 3. By 1970, around 240. By 1980, 230. Today, it trades around 127. What had been the world's reserve currency became just another regional money. But Britain kept up appearances afterward. They maintained their Security Council seat, built nuclear weapons, claimed special partnership with Washington. The reality was obvious to everyone. They'd become a former superpower, a historical exhibit. The empire disappeared and never returned. When World War II ended, the USSR stood as one of two global superpowers. It possessed nuclear arsenals, commanded enormous military forces, controlled Eastern Europe's entire bloc, and launched satellites into orbit. Soviet leadership believed their system represented humanity's inevitable future. They thought communism would outlast capitalism. 45 years, they competed directly with America, building comparable military strength with more tanks, missiles, and soldiers. Their economy was quietly disintegrating the entire time. Military spending consumed them. The Soviets allocated 15 to 20% of their total economic output to defense, roughly triple America's proportion. They needed to match American technological advancement, global presence, and alliance networks, despite having a significantly smaller economy. Afghanistan became a bleeding wound. They financially supported Cuba, Syria, Vietnam, North Korea, Angola, and Ethiopia. Wherever American influence appeared, Soviet counterpresence followed. The financial strain was mathematically unsustainable. Economic growth simply stopped during the 1970s. Oil exports provided their only reliable income stream. Everything else malfunctioned. Industrial output was garbage. Agricultural production failed repeatedly. Technology lagged decades behind Western standards. By the 1980s, they were purchasing grain internationally. A nation controlling some of Earth's most fertile agricultural land couldn't feed its own population. Centralized planning proved unworkable. Innovation disappeared under state control. Production collapsed without incentive structures. Their currency was fictional. The ruble couldn't be traded internationally. Soviet citizens themselves didn't trust it. They used American dollars whenever possible. The government purchased foreign goods using gold reserves and oil exports, because international markets rejected rubles completely. When oil prices dropped in 1985 and gold stockpiles diminished, they ran out of actual monetary resources. The empire fragmented. Berlin's Wall came down in 1989. Eastern European states immediately departed Soviet control. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, and East Germany all left within 12 months. The satellite territories providing strategic buffer zones vanished. Soviet leadership couldn't prevent it. They lacked the financial resources. Total dissolution arrived December 26, 1991. The Soviet Union simply ceased existing. 900 days separated the Berlin Wall's fall from complete governmental collapse. No foreign military invaded. No enemy army advanced. Pure economic failure destroyed them internally. Military salaries couldn't be paid. Government operations couldn't continue. The ruble lost all value. A nuclear superpower with 30,000 warheads imploded from economic exhaustion alone. Identical pattern, identical result. Overextension, monetary failure, debt accumulation, territorial loss, systemic collapse. America is currently replicating this exact sequence. Our military operates over 750 installations across 80 countries. We station personnel in 150 nations. We've committed to defending Europe via NATO, protecting Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, conducting Middle Eastern operations, and confronting both China and Russia simultaneously. Annual military expenditure exceeds $850 billion, more than the next 10 nations combined. It remains insufficient for our commitments. America operates more than 750 military installations spanning 80 nations. Personnel are deployed across 150 countries. Our security guarantees cover European NATO members, Japan, South Korea, Philippine territories, plus active operations throughout the Middle East, while simultaneously challenging Chinese and Russian ambitions. Defense appropriations hit $850 billion annually, exceeding the combined budgets of the next 10 largest military spenders. Despite this massive allocation, our capacity remains inadequate. Our forces are dangerously overcommitted. Hardware deteriorates from constant use. Enlistment numbers fall short of requirements. We've made security promises we cannot simultaneously honor. Should China move on Taiwan, while Russia advances into NATO territory and Iran blockades critical waterways, responding to all three becomes impossible. We've exceeded sustainable limits, mirroring Spain's four-continent commitments, Britain's global garrison requirements, and Soviet overreach. Stage 1 is complete. Our monetary system reflects progressive debasement. Nixon severed dollar-gold convertibility in 1971, creating purely fiat currency. Money supply has quadrupled since 2000. 6 trillion entered circulation after 2020 alone. Dollar purchasing power has declined 98% since abandoning gold backing. We're not physically adulterating coinage like Spain did. We're digitally creating unlimited currency. Different mechanics, identical outcome. Systematic devaluation. Stage 2 is complete. Debt has spiraled beyond control. America owes $38 trillion, representing 125% of annual economic output. Interest obligations alone approach $1 trillion yearly. We now spend more servicing debt than funding defense. Annual deficits persist regardless of economic conditions. We ran $1.8 trillion shortfalls in 2024 during growth periods and peacetime. We're borrowing to cover interest on previous borrowing. This defines debt spiral mechanics. Spain defaulted 4 times. Britain borrowed into collapse. The USSR exhausted all credit. Our trajectory matches theirs. Stage 3 is complete. Manufacturing capacity has vanished. America no longer produces physical goods. We innovate, provide financial services, and consume. But actual production occurs elsewhere. Industrial facilities relocated to China, Mexico, and Vietnam. We import 800 billion more than we export each year. Supply chain dependency extends to everything: pharmaceuticals, electronics, steel, even defense components. Spain relied on imports while silver left the country. We depend on foreign production while dollars flow outward. Our economy shifted entirely towards services and consumption rather than manufacturing. The factories disappeared. Skilled labor emigrated. Industrial infrastructure decayed or was dismantled. Stage 4 is complete. Social indicators show advanced decay. Institutional trust has reached record lows. Urban crime rates climb. Homelessness spreads across major cities. Drug-related deaths claim 100,000 lives annually. Top talent either leaves the country or withdraws from participation. Birth rates have dropped below population replacement levels. Political institutions are completely dysfunctional. Basic consensus on anything has become impossible. Nothing gets fixed. Nothing gets built. Infrastructure projects stall indefinitely. Decay is visible everywhere, yet collective denial continues. The situation is deteriorating. Stage 5 is complete. We've completed 5 of 7 stages. Soviet system reached stage 5 before total collapse. Britain hit stage 5 before imperial loss. Spain endured longer, but followed the same progression. We haven't reached the end point, but we're deep within the destructive sequence. The pattern has never been broken. Every empire that reached this point continued to the final stages. The mathematics doesn't allow for reversal once certain thresholds are crossed. Stage 6 begins when global dollar demand evaporates. Currently, foreign nations accumulate dollars because international commerce requires them. Petroleum trades in dollars, commodity markets price in dollars, reserve holdings sit in dollars. This forces worldwide dollar accumulation regardless of whether countries want to hold our currency. That framework is fragmenting rapidly. BRICS countries, representing nearly half of global population, are constructing alternative transaction networks. China and Russia exchange goods using their own currencies, bypassing the dollar entirely. Saudi Arabia, a 50-year American ally, now accepts yuan for oil purchases. Central banks are accumulating gold faster than any period in recent history. They're preparing for post-dollar dominance. The transition has already begun. When stage 6 completes, overseas dollar holdings return home. Trillions flooding back simultaneously. Foreign governments and institutions dumping dollars they no longer need for trade. This triggers severe inflation domestically. The currency that provided global leverage becomes a liability. Import costs become prohibitive overnight. Trade imbalances become unsustainable. Living standards crater almost immediately. Everything we've imported cheaply for decades suddenly costs multiples more. The American consumer lifestyle collapses. Stage 7 means complete systemic breakdown. Not recession or depression terminology, but total institutional failure. Government obligations go unpaid. Social Security disbursements, street op, Medicare ceases functioning, military compensation halts. Financial systems freeze entirely. Banking operations shut down. Markets crash beyond recovery mechanisms. Unemployment explodes nationwide as businesses cannot access capital or pay workers. Spain experienced this deterioration over decades. Britain took years watching their empire dissolve. The Soviet Union collapsed in 900 days from stable superpower to non-existent entity. Collapse velocity accelerates with each historical iteration because modern economies are more interconnected, more leveraged, more complex, and more fragile than historical precedents. Precise timing remains unpredictable. Perhaps 10 years, perhaps 5, perhaps less. The mathematics guarantees collapse is approaching. Only timing varies based on external shocks and policy decisions. Currency crisis triggers debt crisis. Debt crisis triggers political crisis. Government legitimacy evaporates. Institutions fail simultaneously. Society fractures along every existing division. The superpower becomes a historical warning overnight. Reserve currency becomes regional currency accepted only domestically. The empire becomes memory studied by future civilizations. This sequence completed 3 times previously. Spain believed their gold and silver reserves made them exceptional. Britain believed their unprecedented empire made them different. The Soviets believed communist economic theory and military strength protected them. All were catastrophically mistaken. We're repeating identical delusions currently. Claim technological advancement makes us different. We claim dollar dominance protects us indefinitely. We claim American exceptionalism exempts us from historical patterns. The pattern ignores claims of uniqueness. The pattern follows mathematics. Indefinite deficit spending is impossible. Imperial maintenance without domestic production is impossible. Currency debasement without eventual consequences is impossible. The sequence continues regardless of national mythology. 3 empires followed this identical progression: Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union. Each believed their circumstances were unique. Each believed historical patterns didn't apply to their situation. Each believed the rules of economics could be suspended through sheer power or ideology. They were catastrophically wrong every single time. We're telling ourselves identical delusions today. The pattern indicates America is next in the sequence. Since 2020, we've accelerated through every stage at unprecedented velocity. Money creation has exploded. Debt accumulation has intensified. Military commitments have expanded. Production capacity has continued hollowing out. Social cohesion has fractured further. We're not cautiously walking this path anymore. We're sprinting toward the conclusion. Maybe America will find an exit that eluded Spain, Britain, and the Soviets. Maybe we'll implement reforms that reverse the trajectory. Maybe we'll rebuild manufacturing, restore fiscal sanity, and reduce imperial overreach. Maybe this time genuinely is different, and American exceptionalism proves real rather than rhetorical. The pattern suggests otherwise. The mathematics suggests otherwise. History, having witnessed empires destroy themselves through identical mechanisms repeatedly across centuries, suggests we're approaching the lesson the hard way. America has completed the first 5 stages of imperial collapse. Military overextension, currency debasement, debt spiral, loss of production, and social decay are already behind us. Only 2 stages remain: the loss of reserve currency status and total systemic collapse. History shows no empire has ever reversed course after reaching this point. Spain couldn't escape it. Britain couldn't escape it. The Soviet Union couldn't escape it. The pattern has repeated 3 times without exception. America is 4th in line.